Hey, welcome to the City Rev Life podcast. And I have in our series on empathy, once again, I have Muche, the man, the myth, the legend. He's here. I don't know what you say after I say that.
No, fam, you just listen.
Take it. You just take it.
There was this, yeah, I'm just going to receive it.
You just take it.
That's it.
And
move on.
Yes. And so Muche's here. He's talking to us about empathy basically in practice in relationships. And so we've talked about empathy in a couple different ways. We're in the series we're in now, we're kind of like working it out in different spheres of our relationships. And in the last episode, we talked about friendship. But let's talk about empathy working itself out in forgiveness. And the reason this is critical is because this affects every one of our relationships.
For sure.
And specifically, let's narrow it a little bit because forgiveness is a gigantic subject. And it's massive, it's messy, but let's bring it into the scope of our like ongoing everyday relationships because it requires forgiveness. So we're not talking about forgiveness as it relates to like the big T traumas in our life. We're talking about forgiveness as it applies to friends, people at our church, people in our family, our spouses, relationships with kids, those kinds of relationships. We want to have forgiveness. So let me just ask you this, Muche, to kind of start off with. Give us kind of a working understanding of forgiveness and like kind of a life of forgiveness like that. So just kind of give me something about it.
You see, I would like everybody to know how he forces me to handle the hard questions first.
Why do you think I invited
let the
you?
record show that Roby is strategic.
What did you think this was going to be?
And another S word is selfish. Bro, why would I do that? Like you could do, you're the...
I'm now working on
a
working
definition. A working definition of forgiveness.
Why did you think I brought you on this
Jesus'
podcast?
name.
Is to ask you the tough questions.
You're funny, bro. Working definition for forgiveness is to free someone from the punishment that you can impose on them. So you have the right to make them pay, but you don't. You relinquish your right to punish someone. That would be my working definition.
See, that's why I ask you the tough questions because you know.
That was on the spot.
That was good, bro. Okay,
like, you're
all right.
Funny.
So how do I know? Okay, so
ancillary ideas around that.
I'm doubling down on this.
Double down.
How do I know when I have forgiven someone?
Yeah, I don't know if that is black and white, but I think there's like markers. If forgiveness is a journey, right, that is a decisive act, right? So I'm setting the direction of what I'm doing, and then I'm walking down that journey. I think there's mile markers on a journey where you end up and you're like, yeah, I've forgiven you, and I'm walking in forgiveness. Obviously, God is different than us, where He is able to like release us and then not bring up the past in the same way that we do. Love holds no records of wrong, so God doesn't bring up the past to condemn. It's only to inform, shepherd us, and move us forward in more spiritual health and growth. And so I do think there's mile markers. One of the mile markers that I have noticed, both personally, but pastorally and professionally, is how you think and talk about the person who's hurt you. When your first few thoughts are not towards their doom, like, like where it's like, man, I just want you to suffer. Like, I think that's how you start to know, yeah, I'm really walking in forgiveness with this person. When you're able to, like, that's really, I mean, if we're looking at mile marker 1, mile marker 5, mile marker 10, just random numbers. And mile marker 1 is more of like the beginning. That's really the beginning part. Like, how are you starting to think and talk about them? And then somewhere in this 5-10 area is, can I celebrate them? Can I sincerely celebrate the good that they're experiencing in their life?
Wow.
Or I'm like, but if you really knew, or they don't deserve, and then it's, does that make sense? So like, to me, it's like, I don't know if there's a black and white, here you go, as much as there's, progression in these mile markers where you start to realize, oh, like now I'm really walking in forgiveness. And quite frankly, the only way you can really do that is you're walking into the depth of the gospel in your own heart, where you're like, you know what, God sees me as Jesus, right? God treats me as Jesus. and he's related to me based on Jesus. And so I'm receiving mercy and grace, and now I'm able to live in that and live from that. So
that's super helpful.
That would be
I think about our buddy John Elswick. I heard him put it like
he
this
is
one.
goated.
I love that guy.
If you're watching this, John, we believe that you're goated.
What he said.
You know what goated means?
Yeah, I was thinking the goat.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I was judging you, but you already extended forgiveness once, so I was giving you an opportunity to do it again.
A decisive decision right now. And I'm going to continue on this journey. All right. So, but how John Elswick put it once that I thought was good. I need to just kind of ignore you for a second. I just need a little space.
Okay, I'm sorry.
All right. How John put it one time is he talked about that framework of blessing and cursing. And he said, part of the forgiveness is I have a heart of cursing. Like we don't go around like hexing people.
That's really good.
Like we don't curse people.
We are in South Florida, bro.
That's true. There are some people that actually hex. But most of us don't go around like hexing people. We don't have an actual voodoo doll where we're like trying to pronounce, but our heart has cursing in it. Like I want them to suffer. I want them to get what they deserve. I do not want them to succeed.
Yeah,
I want them, I want them no longer on the planet, which is, I'm not like actually maybe like in my mind thinking of their demise and how I would like for them to die, but I'm functionally wishing that they were no longer around, which is essentially hatred. It's hatred. It's saying, I want you to be gone.
Sounds like murder when I read my Bible.
Yeah, it's like murder in my heart. So there's a heart of cursing, which in the biblical framework, if someone's done something wrong, that's what they deserve, but from God. From God. So that it feels just to have a heart of cursing for someone, although vengeance is not mine, it's the Lord's. But forgiveness is doing what God did, where his heart of cursing turned to a heart of blessing. And it's kind of what you were thinking, we're speaking about when you were talking about, I can celebrate them. I can actually root for them. I can pray for them. And you get this idea where...
So crazy to say out loud. Can you just hear what you just said? Yeah. That's so wild to say out loud.
Remember when Jesus says,
so crazy.
Pray for them, pray for your enemies, bless them, do not curse. Mm-hmm. So we talk about like... Well, my enemy, that rival at work that's making my life miserable, I'm going to pray for them. And it's like, Lord, I pray that you get them. Like, stick it to them. Lord.
And there's room for that. There is absolutely room for that. But the gospel overdoes it.
Yeah.
And it says, here's what you can do, but here's what I'm calling you to do. And that's like, who among us can actually do that?
Yeah. Apart from being made a new creation and the power of the gospel in our life. And so when he's saying, bless those who curse you, like it's not just a like saying something nice. It's like a framework shift in your heart of having a heart of blessing. So the payoff of this is it's living out the gospel. It's a literal miracle of the gospel that we would do that. It is making us more like Christ because that's what Christ did. And it's setting us free from bitterness that's ruining our lives. Like we want it for so many reasons, even tangibly, we don't want to be ruled by anger and bitterness. There's so many parts of it. Talk to us, Muche, about what is the role then of empathy in the process of forgiveness?
Yeah. Again, it's to consider the other. And there's a clear way that the way I can consider someone else is by thinking about how God has considered me, right? And so when I look at the cross rightly, I should progressively be emptied of self-righteousness. I deserve God's fierce hand, not the nail hand of Jesus. And so there's a way that I should be emptied of self-righteousness. Okay. From there, I now have to consider others. And I do think the consideration can be measured in two ways. I consider people's intentions and I consider their actions. And then I'm able to kind of move differently as it relates to forgiveness. In one sense, it's easier for me to want people to consider my intentions. I didn't mean to, but you still got to deal with your actions, what you did. And that's okay. But because I'm considering your intentions, I'm moving a little bit more gently with your actions. I'm not as harsh or heavy-handed. And so that's where I would say empathy. It's like receiving the perspective of the cross, walking in it, and then considering the other but evaluating their intentions and their actions.
Drop that quote on us that you were.
Oh, that
looking at.
quote.
Yeah.
Listen, you know, I don't know who first said it, but I'm gonna give credit to my friend Anna Perez. She says, we tend to judge others by their actions and ourselves based on our intentions. And I was like, you out here dropping bombs, Anna. And it was also, actually, it was in a context of friendship and forgiveness. We were having this conversation way back when, pre-apocalypse days in Chicago. And so like 2018, 2019, something like that. And it was a context of friendship and forgiveness, and how we were just like looking at the landscape and how it just seemed like people were walking in bitterness, clear resentment, but there was a self-justification. There was a way in which they were talking as if they were the ones in the right. And it's like, nah, fam, like your heart is corroded. Like you're hurt, you're wounded, and you need to be free of that. And part of how you're going to be free is if you look at their intentions. Man, they didn't mean to hurt you. They were ignorant at best. They weren't intentional with it. And we still have to deal with the actions. They did hurt you. So let's deal with that. We have to seek some type of repair and restitution. But man, if I really look at their heart, come on, man, like, yeah, be better. Like, you know?
Yeah, that's such a incredible concept. You know, we judge people on their actions, but ourselves on our intentions. And I think the closer the relationship, the more likely we do that.
Oh my,
right?
Kids.
Yeah, with our kids, with our spouses, with our closest friends. It's like, you know, I mean,
because you should know better.
Yeah. And we have bitterness towards a kid, a parent, a close friend, where we're saying like, you know, this is what you did. But if they're close, and sometimes you have people close to you that are not good people, and maybe they did want to hurt you. Maybe they're lashing out, they're being bitter or vengeful. But in a lot of the healthy relationships we have where bitterness creeps in, maybe it's a healthy marriage, but there's bitterness and resentment creeping in, or maybe it's you have a good kids. It's just that they've, you know, and we don't want to give them the benefit of the doubt. And giving them benefit of the doubt, you've got to enter in with empathy, and you're really, what you're doing is you're just doing for them what you expect them to do for you.
The golden
right?
rule again.
Goes back to empathy, goes back to the golden rule. So giving these close relationships the benefit of the doubt, giving space to hear their real intentions, requires that kind of empathy. And also, again, you know, we think about forgiveness with Christ. It starts by Jesus entering in and taking our sin on him. Now, he was sinless. We're not sinless. And so, like, for us, I'm not, and you're not, just so you know.
No, the record show.
No, I've had to forgive you multiple times already, just in this podcast. So I think, Muche, we know you are not flawless, sinless.
Clearly, I'm not.
But like, we can, every one of us with empathy can enter into someone's experience when we've been hurt, and we can say, you know what, I've done that, and I've done that to other people. Sometimes I can say, you know, I've done that to you. Like, why am I staying mad at you?
So good.
I've done this same thing to you before. And then at very least, even if someone is staying in their self-righteousness of, no, I would never do that, I never have done that, and maybe there's some dimensions that they haven't, but at some level, we've done whatever that is to God.
Absolutely. We are violators of relationship.
Yeah.
And the more we own that, it's not that things become easier.
Yeah.
We just become different in how we move. Can I tease out an idea that may seem like super left field?
Yes, go for it.
Are you sure?
Yes.
You may have to forgive me again.
I'm getting used to it. So, but, I mean, there's like a 70 times 7 verse I heard at one point.
It is in the Bible,
so,
which we believe to be
47
the word
more.
of God.
Okay.
So here's the idea, and it's a parenting piece. It's a conversation with my kids that has been really transformative. You know, when there's truth, you know, and then it's like the Lord, and just life draws you deeper into the truth. So it's not just acquiring of knowledge; it's just a depth of knowledge. Like you're going deeper into what you already know. Anyway, random. Um, but the world around us is so hard. Like, it is hard to live in the world. Like, we live in a post-Eden reality, right? It's a world tainted by sin, where misery is around the corner, groaning for redemption, right? So the world is hard. Relationships are hard. And when you find safety, sometimes we take advantage of safety, where the safest relationships we have, instead of them cultivating more strength, we abuse them.
Wow.
And there's a way where, like, I'm watching, like with my kids, where we're shorter with the people who we're closest to, and it's like, because we know they'll still be there, and it's like, man, that there's a better way. Like, there's something beautiful about saying, man, you could be your full self, amen. But man, in these relationships, to preserve the integrity of them, to preserve the safety of them, they should move us towards greater experiences and display of strength and forgiveness. And so, you know, I don't know, man, just to tease that out, because it's like, why is it that we have the hardest time forgiving the people closest to us? And it's because they're safe, because the world around us is not. And so there's an expectation there, but I wonder if there's another way that we can move in those spaces where it's like, these are the spaces where we should have the easiest time, because they are the spaces where we don't have to be perfect, where we could experience grace, because the world is no friend of grace, as Eugene Peterson once said. So I don't know. That's a
no. I think that's great. I think sometimes we don't give our best to the people that we're the closest to, you know, and so like we don't, and then on top of that we don't work as hard to forgive. But then on top of that, because we're closest to them, the wounds hurt more because they have greater access to our hearts.
For sure.
And so sometimes it's harder to forgive. And I think, and I just want to just circle back to what you said about the cross. You know, when you see and imagine Jesus suffering for our sin, it removes any kind of self-righteousness. We are not that's what we deserved.
Yeah.
I have nothing to stand on of my own. And I think that the greatest barrier to forgiveness in the end at its core is self-righteousness.
I agree.
Because that thing of you are evil and this is what you deserve. I can't stay in that spot if I believe I am also evil and I also have done that or something similar to that.
Absolutely.
And empathy is helpful, that it helps me get into their experience and helps me say I've been there too.
But the thing with that too is it empties us of self-righteousness, but it doesn't produce self-loathing, because that's not the gospel, and that's not even empathy either. It's to say, nah, but I've been given something different. I've been treated differently. And so now unto him who's able to strengthen us through the gospel, Romans 16. So I'm now able to live out of that strength, not load, woe is me. I say I'm chief of sinners, but at the same time I say, but by the grace of God, I am what I am, which is both unmerited favor and divine empowerment. So I agree.
So let's just make this particular one practical. So let's speak to the one who is saying, listen, I'm hurting. I'm still angry. I'm angry at that good friend. I'm angry at that person in my small group. I'm angry at my sibling. I'm angry at my parent. I'm angry at my spouse. What do they do to start the journey of forgiveness or continue the journey of forgiveness? And how does empathy play into that?
Yeah, the first thing I would say, this is Chip Dodd, right? The voice of the heart. Talks about 8 core emotions. Emotions are neutral. They could be impaired or they could be healthy, and they provide a gift. I think he's spot on with that. And so the emotion of anger is an emotion that exposes what we care about. And so in an unhealthy way, it leads to rage, depression, but in a very healthy way, it leads to passion. Jesus flipped tables. And so if you're angry, it shows that there's something that you care about. What did you care about? So at first I would acknowledge that, man, you are feeling something. And if you are feeling anger, let's explore why you're angry. Like, what are you caring about? What is grabbing your heart? And it's usually this person. Like, you actually care about this person. You care about this relationship. And so if you care about this relationship, how can we move in a way that's healthy and not in a way that's harmful? How can we move in a way that reflects care versus reflecting pain, if that makes sense, or frustration? So that would be the first, is to acknowledge you actually do feel this what you feel exposes that you care deeply. And so what do you care about? Oh, you care about this relationship, you care about this person. Well, what is the best outworking of care? Well, we actually have examples of this in the scriptures, that you love one another, you bear one another's burdens, you forgive one another. So now it's like, oh, what does it look like now to say, because I care about you, I have to confront you, David, Nathan, you are that man. But then I have to walk with you in the process of restoration, which means it's going to hurt you and it's going to hurt me. But that's what care requires. And in that process, I'm going to have to forgive you, that say, you don't have to pay. I'm not going to punish you.
That's powerful, and it requires courage. It requires courage to walk through that.
And community.
It requires community. It requires courage to confront that person and the vulnerability of that, and the decision to start the forgiveness process and to walk in it. And along the way, entering into their perspective with empathy, and entering into the space that, hey, I've done this before too. I'm not sinless. And even the one who was sinless still forgave. And so he forgave.
So crazy.
He forgave
while
he was paying for their sin. He forgave. It's crazy. So anyway, well, hey, I hope that this was a helpful podcast episode for you on empathy and forgiveness. And we'll see you next time on the City Rev Life podcast.
Man, I forgive you for making me answer that question first.
Thank you so much for listening to the City Rev Life podcast. Feel free to subscribe and leave a rate and review. We love it when you share it with your friends on social media, so don't forget to tag us at cityrev.church. If you're interested in more resources, download our City Rev Church app and follow us on social media. Have a great day.